I call the meeting to order. Are we properly posted?
The meeting was posted according to law.
Roll call.
President Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Duda. Here. Trustee Harding.
Here.
Trustee Moody.
Here.
Trustee Nugent. Here. Trustee Wisniewski.
Here.
And Trustee Seeger is absent.
Okay. Just before we get started, I sent an email to village employees and village board, but for residents who don't know, the first week in May is the week of Public Service Recognition Week. So I just wanted to take 2 seconds and thank all of you here on the board and our volunteers on the boards here in the village, and obviously our village employees for doing all that they do for public service. So thank you, everyone.
Matt, why don't you read it? It was very well written.
I'm not going to read my email and bore everybody. No, I don't.
You recognize all the different departments from the
Microphone. Mary.
sorry.
From the police department, DPW, the administration, and he also recognized everybody else that volunteers and serves as committee member. So I thank you, Matt, for your role.
If you really want to read it, somebody can file a records request.
It's very good. It's very good.
Incoming tomorrow.
Yeah, and coming tomorrow. Okay, so thank you for that little sidebar. We'll start with citizen participation. Per Village Resolution 2017-01, anyone wishing to address the village board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject must specifically relate to matters under the jurisdiction of the village board, whether on the agenda or not. The village board should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it was not part of the publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of this citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they're participating in a public hearing or specifically allowed by a majority vote of the village board due to involvement in an agenda item. Nope, going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close citizen participation. We'll move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to miscellaneous business. Item 1, presentation of the 2025 audit report, which is the board summary, draft financial report, and draft required audit communications to the board. We have Kevin here. Kevin, it's all yours.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm going to keep it brief. What you have in your packet is 3 documents. One is a financial statement overview, which is basically what I'm going to talk on. And in the interest of brevity, I'm probably pretty much going to summarize the first page on there or talk about what's on the first page because that gets into the meat of things. Your audit report itself is, the content of the audit report. There's a PDF in there. I think it's 85, 90 pages long. And what we wanted to do is just give a little bit of an idea of what's included within there. The first thing in there is the independent auditor's report. We're putting an opinion on the financial statements to determine whether or not the financial, the statements conform to generally accepted accounting principles. The report is unmodified, which is what you want. There's no modifications. It's a clean opinion, so that is good. Following that, there's management discussion and analysis, which is about 8-10 pages of summary information that's extracted and explained within and some of the highlights that are included there. Then you get into the actual meat of the financial statements. There's fund financial statements, which is broken down into the different fund types, the governmental funds, which is your general fund, your TIF districts, capital projects funds, and then you've got your business type funds, which is your utilities, water and sewer, and then also the airport funds is included in there. There's government-wide financial statements, which are consolidations and of the governmental fund types and the business fund types. The governmental fund types follow a short-term asset liability recorded on there. and the government-wide statements will include long-term assets, long-term liabilities. So that's the one difference in the types of accounting. Probably the largest section in there is the notes to the financial statements, and in addition to a summary of the significant accounting policies, all of the significant financial accounts have got disclosures, or areas, I should say: cash, plant, debt, your fund balance, your Wisconsin retirement system. There's a long footnote on there, and also with life insurance, there's a long footnote there. But that's included within the notes to the financial statement. So that in and of itself contains the content of the audit report. We also got an audit communication to the village board, and that's it's a standard communication that highlights some of the different accounting policies. If there were any changes in there, there's really nothing much of significance that's there. We did include the list of the audit adjustments that we were proposed. We have a management letter comment, which is pretty much the one that we've had in the past, which, there was a number of audit adjustments that were made to the books in order, from what was sent to us in terms of, the trial balances from the funds that you had. We analyze it, and there was a series of adjustments that we took, and then we, consolidated the financial statements, but we had to make a point that, it involved some audit adjustments that were there. The key financial statements or key financial results on there, I'll just say overall, this would be governmental funds and utility funds. You've got a healthy, you're in healthy financial situation. Your governmental fund balance is $7.3 million. That includes all of the funds. The general fund balance increased by a little over $215,000. The revenues were a little bit above budget by about $54,000. Expenditures were under budget by $16,000. I think you had some budget amendments that you went from a balanced budget to you were actually anticipating a surplus, and the surplus that you had was larger than what was in your budget amendments. So the financial results were to the positive. Your unassigned fund balance, and let me, fund balance is broken down into a number of different categories. There's non-spendable fund balance, restricted fund balance, committed, assigned, and then finally unassigned. And that goes from the least level of liquidity to the highest level of liquidity. And your unassigned fund balance, which is basically everything that was left over, is about 45% of the 2025 expenditures and 46% of your 2026 budgeted expenditures. That's a very healthy reserve to have. The water utility had operating income of $341,000 and an increase in cash flow of $563,000. There was some capital expenditures that were also included in there, about $13,000. The sewer utility had operating income of $75,000. Cash flow increased by $390,000. Capital expenditures were $256,000. The general obligation debt limit is a function of the tax base within the village. So your debt limit is, your general obligation debt limit is $34.1 million. That's 5% of your tax base, and the debt that counts towards that is $14 million. So you've got, you're probably at around, you've got $20 million in debt capacity in there, which is, more than half of your debt capacity. So very, very healthy reserve. The rest of the document, I extracted the main points and just went over that, but I've got a summarized income statement, and then the details of the fund balance. The next page after that has got a chart that identifies all of the fund balance designations that you had, which I believe was approved at a previous board member. And then we've got, some of the summary results by each one of the utilities. So just to be concise and wrap things up, I mean, that, again, like I said, you had a clean opinion on the financial statements. And you've got a very strong financial position to the village. And we had no difficulties in terms of completing the audit this year. So, as in most years. So
Thanks, Kevin.
that,
Any questions from the board?
Yeah,
Got
just got a
one. Go
question.
ahead.
So the geo debt limit, 34 million, so right now we're at 14 million, that's 20 million that we have room for. What do we have planned for this year that's going to go in geo? Are we still anticipating another 20 million gap, or not gap, but difference after 2026?
So the next planned borrowing for GO debt is 2027. So right now, we're on every other year cycle with the capital projects. So that'll be the next planned one. I can't tell you exactly what was in that. I don't remember off the top of my head. We do have potential borrowing this year. Well, we're going to have a borrowing, but we're looking at Clean Water Loan Fund for the School Street Lift Station, which is a TID 5 obligation.
yeah, and just one summary or quick point on there is the debt limit does not include any of the revenue bonds of the utilities, and you do have a couple $1 million in revenue bonds, which is mainly clean water fund loans. And so
And that debt limit's tied to equalized value, right?
right, and that value changes you get notification on that in middle of August of every year. So if you're looking at a 27 borrowing, you'll most likely get a bump up, if not two, by the time you do that borrowing, and your debt will probably go down. So for whatever debt payments you're making in 26 and then into 27.
Other questions from the board? Do we need a motion on this to accept anything?
Kevin, do you need a motion to accept the audit report?
I some places do that. It's still in draft form, I believe. I think we need to send the rep letter, and when you sign that, that's basically signing off that you've approved it. So,
Yeah, we have it here for Matt to sign.
so if you want to make a motion on that, that's fine. It's not necessary. The signature is what we're looking for. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 audit report.
I'll second that.
All right, questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Kevin, thanks again.
thank you.
Appreciate the work.
Have a nice night.
You too.
You too. Bye.
All right, item 2, discussion and direction of staff regarding requests to reconsider allowing ATV/UTV traffic within the village. I requested this to be put on the agenda. We have Adam Hammerstad here. He's a village resident who reached out to me, and he and I were chatting through email and just before the meeting that you can see from Eileen's memo here, the last time we discussed this as a board was back when Scott was president, November of 22, when the county was changing county ordinances to allow municipalities whether they wanted to allow ATVs or UTVs. And I had mentioned to Adam that he was the first village resident to specifically approach me. Everybody else who's approached me has been a town resident, not a village resident. So given that we had a village resident asking about this topic, and since we hadn't really talked about it in about 3.5 years, I thought we should put this on here. We're not looking to make a decision on this tonight, but try to give staff direction as to how we want to bring this back, if we do want to bring it back, or how do we want to gather community input. Adam, do you want to say just a couple words about kind of why you asked us to revisit this topic?
Yeah, I just want to get your guys' input on what you'd be looking for as far as from the citizenship to approve, such a measure. So whether it's the amount of people you need, or people coming in and hollering and saying they want it, or if it's something you guys are definitely not going to want to do, then I won't pursue it.
Hopefully no hollering. So I'm going to open up to the board here to, talk about what are your thoughts on this? Is this something we want to talk about, or is this something we want to leave as is? It's right now prohibited, or do we want to we could have a committee of the whole, we could have an ordinance, we could do a number of different ways.
I wasn't too familiar with rules and regulations and what it might entail, so I reached out to a bunch of village residents to get their opinion. Across the board, the people I spoke to said they would not like it, ATVs to be legal, ranging from the age limit to the possibility of intoxication to the uptick in recent motor accidents that we've had. So there it is, just from the people that I spoke with. For whatever reason, it was pretty emphatic.
So I guess I'm indifferent on it. I guess I'd like to see or hear from the, police department on what their thoughts are, and then the residents, the pros and the cons of that, because I did some research on it and found that some municipalities allow it, but as long as you have a speed limit and there's certain roads that they can have, and they can't go at night, and they have to have insurance, things like that. So, there's pros and cons to that. So I guess I would need a, argument for and against that. So I'm open to it.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I got a lot of people come up and ask me about it, why we don't approve it and everything like that. The one thing I was wondering, because we already allow those fancy golf carts to drive on the roads, what's the difference if we allow the UTVs to drive on the road too?
Chief, what's the difference between those in terms of state statutes?
Well, those fancy golf carts are licensed by the state. They have to, they're made to pass federal, I guess, vehicle regulations, and how they're set up and all their equipment on there and everything. So that's why they have their own license plate that comes right from the state that says, low speed vehicle or whatever it's called. But that's the difference is the feds say that is a legal vehicle, motor vehicle on the road, so.
Are ATVs legal?
They don't meet the regulations of the federal government to say that it's a motor vehicle. These fancy golf carts do. They have special brakes, whatever is all included. But yeah, your ATV and UTVs don't have that kind of equipment, so that's kind of the difference.
The residents I've spoken to, similar concerns as what Dan mentioned. I think some are concerned about noise, and a couple of residents have brought up similar to your question about the golf cart, but what about e-bikes? And I actually was coming over here this evening, and there was a gentleman on 20 on an e-bike. So I don't know. I've seen some kids on some electric scooters and e-bikes on sidewalks doing like 25 miles an hour. So I don't know, kind of opening a can of worms here if we go too far, but just those are questions that come up when this topic comes up. So we're looking for citizen feedback, it sounds like, because I think, as I said, Adam, you're patient zero.
Okay.
So you're the first to bring this. I think some people have kind of casually had comments. So I would encourage those, like I said, we're not making a decision. So by not doing anything tonight, it's not like we can't pick this back up. But I would encourage anybody who's pro or against this to please, our email addresses are on the village website. Please send us a short note, your questions, comments, concerns, if you're in favor of it or not. I think let's give it a few weeks. If it's overwhelmingly one way or the other, we can come back and say, what do we want to do? If not, we can talk about how to break the tie. Sound good? Fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Adam, thanks for bringing it up.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Item 3, consider amendment to development agreement with MFT East Troy LLC to extend the construction commencement date, parcel RA 4704-00001. You see the memo here from Eileen.
Excuse me, Chief, do you want to turn it off?
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the development agreement with MFT East Troy LLC.
I'll second.
All right, questions or discussion on the motion?
Do we need to add the deadline, June 5th?
All right, do we need the deadline?
That's stated in the amendment.
Okay, questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, consider approval of Well 10 Engineering Contract Amendment. Jason?
Okay, so back to well 10. We were able to do a test bore. As you remember, we're doing that out in the business park, north of Corporate Circle, on a village-owned parcel. And we did find a confining layer of shale, and I'll let Ben Wood from Strand is with us tonight. I'll let him bring us up to speed on our findings.
All right, thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone, for having me down. So you'll recall we've been looking at a new water source, Well 10, to replace as a PFAS strategy to address the issues going on with well number 8 to make sure that the village has reliable source of water moving forward. And we kind of stalled out several months ago, needing to know if the Well 10 site that Jason just described in the business park would be viable. And the key component to that is there's a shallow aquifer in the, I'm going to describe the geology here. There's a shallow aquifer. There's hopefully a confining layer of shale. And what that does, that confining layer keeps any surface contaminants, that includes PFAS. I know there's concerns about the landfill a little bit further to the west, any chlorides or anything that comes off of the roadways, that can enter into the shallow aquifer. But if there's this confining layer of shale, we can drill below that into the deep aquifer. So the best data that we had was the USGS had some broad maps that said the edge of where the shale exists just is really close to the site that we wanted. So you'll recall earlier this year, the board authorized the hiring of a driller to come out and drill a test bore. We drilled that down approximately 300 feet. At the time, we were hoping that a shale layer of approximately 20 feet thick existed to provide us protection from the upper level and the lower aquifer. They actually found over 170 feet of shale. So the confining layer is emphatically there, and it's actually thicker than the other deep aquifer well that the village has already. So that gives us a lot of confidence that this is indeed a viable site. And so the next step would be to move toward a funding application, which is due June 30th. This is through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, their Safe Drinking Water Loan. This is the final year of special principal forgiveness eligibility for PFAS projects. So whereas in any given year, East Troy would always be eligible for a low-interest loan, you would not be eligible typically for principal forgiveness just due to the median household income being above the state average. However, there's an exception to that part of it for PFAS projects. So we submitted an intent to apply in October. The full application is due at the end of June. One of the requirements to apply for that full funding application is to have completed plans and specifications for the bidding of the final well hole. And so that is what we're asking for in our amendment tonight. It's what we were kind of holding off on, kind of taking a stepped approach of just kind of going as far as necessary, checking back in with the board before we take the next step. Again, with the results of this test bore, we feel confident and want to keep moving ahead toward that June 30th deadline, and therefore asking for your approval of our engineering agreement amendment to include the design and the funding submittal.
Yeah, 175, how does that compare to, how does that compare?
That's a great question. Jason told me just beforehand, I didn't double check, but it is thicker than well 5 by quite a bit. Jason, do you recall how thick the well 5 shale?
Well 5 is 30 feet of confining layer.
That is.
Yeah.
And I suspect I think what this does is this really ties us to this location, this parcel, right? Because we found what we were hoping to. Now, I do think that if we move one way or another on this parcel, we may find some variation in that. But I think we can be pretty confident, and correct me if I'm wrong, in this parcel having adequate confining layer underneath it.
Yep, correct.
So amendment is to do all that filing that you mentioned.
Yep, it's actually to do the final design of the well hole, the final well hole. So let me break down the overall steps of what goes into this, because it's a lot to keep track of. What you've already authorized us to do in the past is the well siting study. Included in that scope, DNR makes you go through a checklist of environmental concerns to verify that this is indeed a viable well site. Next, we did this optional step of the test bore. The next step after that will be drilling and construction of the final well hole. Well, the difference between that test bore, which is a 6-inch hole that we just did, and the final hole is that final hole will be a diameter of about 20 to 30 inches, and we'll figure that out, but that's just to be large enough to provide the flow rate up to the surface that we will be looking for long term. Once that final well hole is constructed, along with that is test pumping and water sampling. That goes through a standard DNR protocol for how to test pump and sample, but we'll sample for all types of other potential contaminants. I know we've talked about iron and radionuclides in the past. We'll test for all of that when that final hole is constructed. After that, there will be another construction bid package for the actual final permanent well pump and the well facility and any treatment that may be needed to go along with that. And this funding application right now will be for all of those future steps, but we only have to proceed as far as where we go after June 30th. The intent, again, would be to proceed in steps, and that would be actually going ahead with advertising to get bids to construct that final well hole and do the sampling.
And so amendment number 2 that we're asking for approval of tonight is to get the design of the final well hole, borehole, and then to also apply for the Clean Water Fund loan, which makes us eligible for the principal forgiveness, since this is the last year for it. That's kind of the deadline we're up against here.
What's our rough, there's a lot of don't knows, right?
Sure,
Until
yep.
you start pulling out the water and, drilling and all that.
Yep.
What is, though, your estimate of a project like this, what you've discovered so far? When would we have an operational well 10?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I would say 18 months would be fast, but 24 months would be possible. 30 months or 2.5 years would probably be the longer end of the range.
Does the motion need to include the 63,000 in it? Or do? So is it just
Approving
approval of
amendment
the
number
Well 10
2.
engineering contract amendment? Well, I'll make a motion to approve the Well 10 engineering contract amendment.
Number 2.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just had a question on the timing. So we need to submit this by June 30th. Is it more advantageous for us to get it done sooner, or does it matter?
It doesn't particularly matter.
It doesn't matter, okay.
It doesn't, what happened is October 30th of last year, we took the first formal step, and that was to submit a intent to apply letter where we kind of self-score. Due out in the next couple of weeks, DNR will publish a complete list of all of those self-scores and approximately how much money people asked for. And then that was the only kind of precursor step. Now we're in the queue, and it's just a matter of whether or not we submit by June 30th or not.
So what's your timing on this? I mean, is it something you're going to get done at the end of June, or? what's-
Yeah, we target internally to have everything done by June 23rd, so a week ahead of time, just to give ourselves a little bit of a buffer. But what that means is by June 8th, we'll be looking to start our internal quality control process. So from like the true engineering standpoint, we hope to have the bulk of the work done by June 8th. We just kind of work through some checks and back checks for a week. The application will include a number of documents, one of which will be a resolution that I'll get to in a second. But then it just kind of gives us that little extra time to tie up those loose ends and get the application done. And again, we want to submit a week early if we can help it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Now, concerning that actual application, one of the items is a formal resolution regarding the funding. So we just earlier today sent Jason an example of that, and that'll have to come back to the board at some point between now and June 23rd. I understand you'll have a couple of opportunities at upcoming board meetings to consider that.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
More good luck in our drilling. All right, item 5, consider application by The Hive for retail sales at chamber events. Jeanette?
Okay, so if some of you looked at this and were like, what is this? We've never seen this kind of application before. I felt the same way whenever it came to our desk. Eileen had a conversation with Mr. Guild from the Hive Tap Room, and I've had opportunity to speak with our representative at the state level and with the Wisconsin League of Municipalities. Essentially, the AB 105 is a form that is approved at the state level, but it does need to go through the municipality for review as well. The petitioner is requesting that he is able to extend his premise to be able to sell product, give samples, and sell product for off-site consumption during the Chamber of Commerce events, the first Fridays. So what this means is that if the village approves it and the state approves it, he can then sell his wine products there on site.
Is there an impact on our liquor licensing?
No, this is a state issued, he's a winery, so this just allows him to extend his premise to set sites, set dates, and set times.
All right,
I'll make a motion to approve the application by the Hive for retail sales at the Chamber events.
I'll second.
questions or discussion on the motion?
I would like to add that I did speak with the petitioner and ask him specifically if the product that he would be selling is what they produce at the Hive, and he affirmed that.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to ordinances and resolutions. Item 1, Resolution 2026-04, accepting public utilities and improvements for Phase 3 of the Lake Bluff subdivision. Jason, anything to add here?
I don't really have anything, other than we do have a letter of recommendation to accept all the infrastructure from Lynch. They've inspected it, and we've gone through the punch list. We do have John Donovan here tonight from Belinsky. If anybody has any questions or comments for John, I would just like to say thank you for your development, and you've been great to work with. I know it didn't start off so great for us, but we were able to work through it, and we appreciate the partnership. I agree with that.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-04, accepting public utilities and improvements for Phase 3 of the Lake Bluff subdivision.
I'll second that.
We'll give it to Joe. Dan said enough seconds for the evening. Questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Staff reports. Item 1, Fire Chief's April report. Any questions there?
Fire truck looks good. Down there?
I spoke with the fire
Fred?
chief last week, and I said, so we'll have it ready for the Lions Club parade, and he thought so. So hope we'll get to see it there. I'm going to skip down just to committee reports. Item 1, ETA, ESD board minutes from March 26th. Any questions there? Okay. Go back, verbal update on ES Town Line intersection. I don't know if that's Jason or Chief.
No, it's me. So met with the county on Wednesday, and they are moving forward with the four-way intersection, the controlled intersection, stoplights. And I did just get an email confirmation today. They are honoring our request of the LED, the solar-powered LED stop signs. So I did actually get Digger's Hotline requests today for it as well, so you should see that going up in the next couple of weeks. We did confirm they are going to put up some portable message boards ahead of time to start to let the world know that the four-way is coming, so.
What's their timing on that?
Next couple of weeks is all I know at this point, so I would think you're going to see those message boards go out real soon.
And can you, I don't know if the towns were on those communications. If not, can we forward that to them?
I can. The town of East Troy was at the meeting on Wednesday. I did not see the town of Troy, but the town of East Troy was there.
I know, just somewhat related, but with the accident that occurred on on Town Line in 20, I did have the chief pull some accident statistics, and this is by far a more dangerous intersection, at least by looking at accidents. I think there was like 2 years with like 8 in a year, so like 16 over 2 years. So glad to have that. Okay, if nothing else on that, then I will move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
I was going to say, do you not want to go home? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.